Welcome to the Women Deliver 2016 conference in Copenhagen. Thousands of people are gathered here and many more are joining us virtually to discuss how to improve women's welfare across the world. In the studio, I have with me two people who've dedicated their lives to furthering women's rights and the fight against HIV and AIDS. Lennox is the multiple award-winning singer, songwriter and activist, a key figure in the fight against HIV AIDS, and most recently founder of The Circle, an organization of women for women. Shiela Tlou is the director of UNAIDS in Eastern and Southern Africa. She's also the former Minister of Health for Botswana, where she achieved impressive results with a groundbreaking HIV program, still considered a model today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Annie, let's start with you. You believe that women are most affected by HIV and AIDS. Why?
Oh, this is not just my belief. This is an absolute fact. It's a fact that has been given by UNAIDS and proven. It is the biggest killer of women of reproductive age globally. And you know, when you stop to think about that, you really have to take a breath and reconsider. Because, you know, I've been advocating for HIV, as you said, for almost 13 years now, over a decade. And I was, as a woman, always very aware of how my gender is impacted. As a mother, you know, how mothers are impacted. So I felt that despite the fact that I am a white Western woman, that my gender is affected and that I could be an advocate and spokesman for my gender. And on that day that I realized in 2003 when I met Nelson Mandela and he described the pandemic as a genocide that was affecting women and children. He said, AIDS is the face of women and children. I said, I have to amplify this. I must use my platform and let the world know that this is happening, and it's still going on. We've had fantastic developments. We have fantastic achievements. But, well, we can talk a little bit more about what is the future for HIV and AIDS.
What makes women particularly vulnerable, especially in Southern Africa?
Well, in Southern Africa, let's look at just the issues relating to human rights. We have the issue of gender equality. Women still really are, you know, like, I wouldn't say second-class citizens, but they don't have the same rights as men. For example, access to services, access to the right to employment. So you find that August, it actually makes them more vulnerable. We're looking also at the fact that women are often the ones who are discriminated against. Like if they're HIV positive, for example, they are more prone to gender-based violence. But the ordinary woman sometimes, is vulnerable because of the very fact that she cannot decide, especially under conditions where she has to now be answerable to a male who has to decide for her. So you find that that's, really magnifies the vulnerability. But I would say, really for us in Eastern and Southern Africa, one of the things we could do is to keep girls in school and really educate them. And not only that, provide comprehensive sexuality education and child marriages, but most important, end gender-based violence. Because it is violence against women that is actually fueling the epidemic.
And also the socioeconomic conditions that you've spoken about means that women cannot negotiate safe sex, which makes them even more vulnerable. But let's look at the response. You pioneered a comprehensive program for Botswana. I come from a country where we have paid dearly in the absence of political leadership and a comprehensive plan. When all of that changed, the whole picture changed. So the role of political leadership as a former health minister.
The role of political leadership is very important. We have a good program in Botswana, but it became that good because the president himself was really the one championing it. He looked at the statistics. That's what we call evidence, right? And the evidence told him that if this thing continues the way it's going, Botswana will be extinct. It's a small population, 2 million people. We could go anytime. So he was able to say, what then do we do? And got together with civil society and all the partners, and we're able to have a comprehensive program that really was to put people on ARVs, but to ensure also that we have prevention programs and work well with civil society, especially people living with HIV.
Annie, I want the
Yes.
same. I'm asking you the same question precisely because you were moved by our late president in South Africa, Nelson Mandela, and yet you still use that opportunity. I remember being at an event with you where you challenged my current health minister, saying, "I'm watching you, I'm monitoring this." The importance and your engagement with political
That's
figures in the
right.
fight against HIV and AIDS.
Quite extraordinary how to change, how to say truth to power, and how to change people's minds in terms of their own responsibility when they're in a powerful place, and how a president of a country could actually bottleneck access to treatment at that time back in 2003, and the health minister, to be quite frank. You know, if you'd had a different understanding about the response to HIV and AIDS at that time, you would not have seen over 300,000 people dying across the country. Now, I think that Southern Africa has had one of the highest instances of, we know this, of HIV and AIDS in the world. And actually the government has tackled it extremely well. Aaron Motsoaledi, the health minister, who is still the health minister that you refer to, in those, it was 2007 that we met each other. He was in the audience, we were talking about HIV, Treatment Action Campaign members were there, and we said, you must do something. And he did, and the government did respond. Our concern now is not that the government of South Africa are not wanting to respond. It is about the actual investment, financial investment, so that all the great achievements that have been done over the last decade do not start to go into reverse. People are complacent about HIV and AIDS around the world, and we have to keep, as an advocate and a campaigner, we and all of the HIV community, we must keep banging the drum.
Some good news, there's been progress, and he has alluded to that in terms of access to treatment, universal access. But here's the concern, prevention. We've spoken about the vulnerability of women, but the youth as well. And we are also facing another phenomenon of the youth bulge. The youth population is going to double by 2050, and yet they don't have information about prevention. What do we do?
What do you do? For Eastern and Southern Africa, because of that very fact, we saw that we needed to do something. So we got the ministers of health and the ministers of education to get together and to actually agree to implement what we call comprehensive sexuality education. So in all the 22 countries, we have a curriculum, and teachers are currently being trained, but at the same time, countries are really running with it, because we felt that we need to empower all our young people with skills. Otherwise, right now, we are having 5,000 new infections per week. And if we let that continue, it will be mopping while the tap is still running. So we have that program. But of course, it has to be in a cycle with other programs. The very ones that I've said, for example, keeping girls in school and really making sure that you skill them for work, not just to be literate, because right now people will say, oh, this country has a very high literacy level, but it's actually literacy to read and write. We want literacy to be able to employ oneself or to get employment. And that means all the way to tertiary education, which is the new SDG. I really like the new SDG on education.
You're wearing a T-shirt written HIV
Yes.
positive. In
Yes.
fact, I can't imagine you with anything else that you're wearing.
That's
We
true.
spoke about the Sing campaign, the circle that you've started.
Yes.
But in your activism, Annie, you introduced the world to a very special little girl who was HIV positive.
Yes.
And she was thriving on medication. Where is she now?
Well, she lives in the Eastern Cape, and she's over 15 years old now, and she's doing well.
Healthy?
She's doing it well at school, and she's healthy. And she is proof that you can put a child on treatment with good nutrition, and that child can grow up to be a young, healthy adult, thriving. And she wants to be a doctor. She wants to stay in school. She wants to study. So there you invest in a young person. You watch them grow and become a young, contributing adult to society. We do not want to see the entire fabric of nations broken down because of a health epidemic that can be resolved. And we're going on fast track. We want to scale everything up. So we have 90-90-90. UNAIDS has introduced this last year. So we want people to get tested, to go on to treatment, and to stay on treatment.
So the
very
activism
simple.
continues despite the progress. We need it
We
now.
absolutely need it today more than ever.
Yeah. I would say today more than ever, the activism is needed because there is a certain degree of complacency. We are no longer going for funerals. So a lot of people think the epidemic is
over.
Yet it is not over. If we let go now, we will go back to the 80s. And I don't think anybody wants to go there.
No, we don't
Yes.
want to go there. Well,
Yes.
let me thank you for all the phenomenal work that you are doing. I can see that you are both fired up, and it is that vigor that we need in order to respond to HIV and AIDS. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us for this Women Deliver show. We hope you will join us for many more. Now remember that you can participate by tweeting your comments and questions about this and other shows using hashtag WDLive. But don't forget that our Twitter handle is @WomenDeliver. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.